Hello and welcome to Gaming Friday here on Off the Shelf Reviews. I'm Gary.
And I'm Geoff.
And today we are playing Tropico 5 on the Xbox One. It finally came to the Xbox One, Geoff.
Yeah. You console peasants finally got our scraps from our table, did you? PC Master Race.
Hey, come on. This game did actually come out on the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 4. It came out on everything but the Xbox One, okay? And that just happened to be console I'm playing on, okay?
Okay. Oh, no, it's fair enough.
So yeah, this is 2 years old now, this game. Originally, it came out, and now this is the definitive edition, collector's edition, penultimate edition.
Penultimo!
The got everything included edition.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of DLC packs for the game, or for the previous game.
I was going to say, to be fair, I've had this game for ages on PC, but I don't have any of the expansions, so the fact that you bought it with all the goodies and all the extras, it's kind of cool, you know. Like
Absolutely, I was kind of glad in a way, and of course then they could have worked out any of the kinks and all of the updates and bugs would be fixed and everything else. In theory, and well, I can say now that the game has only crashed on me once. And thanks to a sort of semi-generous autosave feature, which this game does have, I didn't lose too much progress. There's one thing that does bug me in this game is that the game will intermittently just cut to a painting like that one in the middle of your game, and you're like, oh, what's happened? Have I won? Have I lost? Is it game over? And it's just quick saving. It's auto-saving for you before it returns you back into the game.
Right.
It does catch you off guard, though, because none of the other Tropico games did that.
Yeah.
And you also find that the game does tend to do that as soon as you reach a population of like over 1,000. I don't know if that was an instance you had on PC or whether this is something console specific.
I'm running on SSD, so things save and load extremely quickly, but this is the thing, all the old consoles got really old, out-of-date hard drives, and so that is one of their biggest bottlenecks in speed, is their loading times.
Okay.
But yeah, that's probably why he's taking a time to just put all that data on the disc.
Well,
it's better than freezing your game, I suppose.
Absolutely, yes. Now, I also want to bring up, before we actually get into the game proper, I just want to bring up the game's history, because this is Tropico 5.
Yeah.
And this game has gone through quite a few different companies.
So there aren't too many things get up to 5 usually, are they?
Not many franchises.
3?
Exactly, yeah. And so I'm kind of glad that this one's still going. There was a lot of criticism about Tropico 4, which came out in 2011, being very similar to Tropico 3, and of course there was only a few years difference between those, whereas if you look back at Tropico originally, which came back out in 2001 by Pop Top Software,
right.
Which is no longer around. They got dissolved with Firaxis and Take-Two Interactive, and then they were sort of working on Firaxis games before eventually, I think it's Hemimont Games would eventually get the rights to continue making Tropico games.
Okay.
And interestingly, it's a Bulgarian company with actually only about 50 employees.
Right.
So I kind of, I always like the underdog.
Is this one of Bulgaria's biggest exports?
I think it pretty much is. It's like their largest video game company. So absolutely. And so here we are with Tropico 5.
Cool.
Now, do you want to explain, Geoff, what Tropico actually is?
Right, so Tropico is a sort of like civilization management system.
It is
I wouldn't,
a Sim City.
Yes, well, yeah. I mean, this is not really... I wouldn't call it a simulator myself, because it draws back on some of the fine details from a more sort of fluid and fun / console-friendly experience, I would say. But it is it's a politics / infrastructure management game, isn't it, really?
Absolutely.
Resource management, that sort of thing. Yeah, in the vein of SimCity, or perhaps Civilization, but not quite really fitting the bill of either of those.
It's not as complicated as... I remember playing SimCity, and I remember desperately trying to make sure that every single house had plumbing.
Yeah.
Every single house was on the electrical grid.
Exactly.
And before I knew it, I had a bunch of abandoned buildings, and everyone moved out of town, and so I created a giant monster to come and kill everything that was left.
Exactly.
So uber complicated.
Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy municipal management in SimCity, which is sort of fine detail, and that's not really a part of this, is it?
No, whereas again, if you look at Civilization, I always find those games much more combat focused because you had to dominate, you had to take new territory.
Yeah,
and
it's
so,
about building empire either through military or diplomatic means.
So
whereas this you're on an island, aren't you? You're not really sort of picking out or fighting with other people, except, I mean, for the purpose of the game, you kind of do have a relationship with superpowers, don't you?
That's right. Yeah, as you go through the sort of ages, I think you start in the colonial era, then you move into the Cold War, which I'm currently in now.
Yeah.
Then you move into the World Wars, and then into modern times.
Yeah. And you are El Presidente, an island dictator.
Absolutely. El Presidente does make a return, but from the previous Tropico games, they've sort of changed the system up a little bit, where you now have a dynasty.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit limiting in terms of the fact that before you could level up your Presidente and they had all these different traits.
Yeah.
Whereas now you have one character and it has one trait. But you then get offspring, and you get additional dynasty members, which also all then have one effect, one trait.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit limiting, but it kind of works in the fact that with each one of those dynasty members, you have specific buildings which you can hire managers for. So, which is also, again, a new system for the game.
Yeah.
So going over to the manager, you can hire someone, and as you can see, I've got a cheapskate dynasty member who would decrease the sort of maximum budget spent on this building by 16%. Other than that, I can then go through all of the other people sort of living in the area. And a good one to do here, just as a pro tip, is to get a landlord somewhere nearby where there's a lot of housing. As you can see here, I've got a Catholic mission surrounded by houses. So increasing the housing quality of all those houses by 5 by putting a landlord in there, it's going to be a very good idea.
Yeah.
So your dynasty members and other sort of intelligent citizens that you cultivate very easily take manager positions.
Yeah. So this has got a kind of micromanagement aspect to it, where you can actually individually control or decree control or try to control certain individuals in the on your island, and you can sort of track their happiness, their progress, their jobs, what they're doing, all that sort of thing, can't you? But it's essentially you are trying to construct your infrastructure, build up your economy, make a sort of thriving economy on the island.
As with every Tropico game, all you are trying to do is stay in power.
Yeah.
And the game will do everything it can to try and dethrone you. And
yeah, I was going to say, you end up having to battle that against the wishes of superpowers, rebels.
See, right now,
people
obviously,
who want democracy.
I'm going into the Cold War, so USA and USSR are kind of both vying for power, and I have the choice of forming an alliance with either one. There is a way to build maybe additional embassies and actually cultivate peace with both countries, or you can go to war with both countries, and you can just build a military empire and just build tank armies and commandos and guard towers, and then just go bring it, and both countries will invade you, and you can dominate them both. As you can make peace. As you can see, I just praised USA, so right now, as you can see in the top right corner, I've got a lukewarm or warm standing with them. As time develops and I dedicate research points into, say, politics, I'll eventually be able to send a delegation to USA, which then means they'll give me a task to accomplish with a reward, which will also increase my standing with them.
Yeah.
Or eventually then I'll also be able to form an alliance with the USA. And the moment I do that, and you've got to be careful when you do this, because the first time I did this, and actually the second time as well, because I forgot what would happen when you form an alliance, is the other country will attack you immediately. Like, the moment you sign that alliance, enemy troops are on your beach, and they will attack you. And so if you've not prepared, too late. You're going to get screwed. Because when you get attacked, you go, oh, crap, I'm going to quickly build guard towers and tanks.
Yeah.
Your construction workers will build them up to 99% and stop. And it literally says, building will be built once the combat's over.
Yeah.
So you can't immediately build troops to go into battle.
No.
You're screwed. And that is irritating. But so you have to be, the game doesn't immediately tell you, hey, you're gonna get attacked if you say yes. So be careful.
Yeah, a little bit of experience. So you go through the years, and you've got to try and build up your population, build up your finances, build up your...
So as I said, there's a lot of other factions that can overthrow you. Now, if you look in the bottom left corner, you can see I've got a thumb up and a 75% there. Yeah. That's the approval rating for how well the people like me on the island. You can sort of bring up the almanac, which is not the greatest. No. But once you know where things are, you can very quickly look around and get the information that you need. So right here, I can see that I've got no unemployed people on the island. Great. Yep. Everyone's got a job. There are actually 40 jobs available on the island, so I need some immigration, or I need to increase my clinics so that I increase the birth rate on the island. Yeah. Now, one of the screens that I always go to the most is the happiness. And of course, it breaks everything down for you quite nicely. It tells you how many types of each building you've got and where your lowest happiness is. So looking at this right now, I can go religion. Not very good, not a very religious island. Yeah. Also, crime safety, yep, not too good. I'm going to need a police station. Entertainment's pretty crap, nothing to do. Healthcare is pretty shitty too. Yeah. Everything's pretty low. So I've got some work to do there to bring that happiness back up.
12 homeless.
So I'm actually surprised it's up to 75%. I think it's going to crash pretty soon.
Apparently your liberty is exceedingly high, so that's keeping your numbers right up.
That means I don't have too many military buildings or police officers, so it's kind of a free island. And looking up here, I can see that corruption is sort of on the rise. So crime lords will appear on the island, and so I can come here and see how many homeless I've got, so I can sort of guesstimate how many extra houses I'm going to need to build. Yeah. But there is special citizens, and this is one I like to always check. When you get a police station, you can actually see who your rebel leaders are and who your crime lords are. And this is one thing that I find great about the game, is that each and every individual on your island, I mean, you say it's like a population of 451 doesn't really seem quite realistic, but you can sort of imagine it. But each and every one of those is a character on the island, and so I can look at, let's have a look at the... this rebel who is well off and he's living in a country house. Let's go and find him. And now you can see here where he's from, where he lives, who he's related to, because your characters, your Sims in this world, will meet others and form families and relationships, and they'll move out of the house and move in. So they've all got their lives going on. You can also go and see exactly what they're thinking about.
I was going to say, see those options you got there, you can have them killed.
Yes, you can be the ruthless dictator, El Presidente, and if you come across crime lords, have them executed. Or you can sort of discredit them, bribe them, banish them. You can also build a prison and an insane asylum and have them sent wherever you like. So there's a lot of information in here, and going into here straight away, it's a bit heavy going, but thankfully you don't need to stay in there too much, Most of the time, I will say, is sort of spent looking and admiring your layout of your city whilst you wait for the cash to roll in. And that is done by building up your economy, which is sort of the main driving force of the game. And it's done in a way of, like all previous Tropico games, is building up your farms, your plantations, and your ranches. And then each one of those can be broken down as well, and it all depends on the sort of jobs available and the education of your citizens.
So now you can see your grid there showing you how
you can see that
productive each area of land
probably
is.
Not in the best of locations, considering it's mainly yellow. The best locations for these ranches are going to, for instance, the llama ranch is going to be in the green areas of the grid. But the reason I placed it here was because it sort of has a perk where, actually I've moved into a new age now, but some of them have perks where they increase the effectiveness by like 10% of all of the other ranches and plantations in the vicinity. So it's a very good idea to build them close together.
So you just upgraded that bad boy?
So yep, I've just upgraded that one. So now it will, I think it's increased the job quality slightly, and it will hopefully produce more for my docks.
So what are some of the resources that you are managing? Well, on your tiny island.
This is sort of your build screen, and they sort of changed it from the previous Tropico game. It took me a little while to get used to where everything is, but after a while, it's pretty much broken down into, as well. I'll just go through them now. You have your infrastructure, your raw resources.
Right, so we've got mining and
mines, wharfs,
farms,
logging camps, oil wells.
Yeah, mining. Yeah. Okay. So then you can take all those resources and construct them into things.
Now, because I'm already in sort of the Cold War era, a lot of this stuff's unlocked, as you can see.
Yeah.
My fusion company's not going to be unlocked until modern times, so that's even after the World War era.
Right.
So,
Fashion.
no, was that the fashion company?
Fashion,
Yes,
right.
Fashion company.
Yeah, I was going to say fusion. Wow, that's the future. Yeah, cool.
Well, there is the future, there is the space age that you can eventually reach, the sort of the end game.
Yeah.
So you can see that there's entertainment, luxury entertainment when you start building up your tourism trade, which is sort of, you want to make sure your economy's in and your happiness is in check before you branch out into tourism.
Yeah.
Welfare and media, research and education, economy and foreign relations, and then of course your military building. So everything's sort of broken down and everything's sort of in a spiral web so that you can easily access what you need.
Seems decent.
Absolutely. Now, as you've said, there is a lot of resources. If I just go to the plantation, it's not just a plantation. As you can see, you have the choice of bananas, cocoa, coffee, corn, cotton, pineapple, sugar, tobacco, and also depending on what island you're on, you're going to want to look to see, okay, this island is going to be pretty rich for sugar, so build a couple of sugar farms. Then after that, build your rum distillery. Rum distillery is great because it doesn't require electricity to run, similar to the cigar factory, which is great. And it also doesn't require highly educated citizens, mainly high school. And again, education is a big part of the game because, and I have run myself into a dead end before where I had too many sort of college jobs and not enough high school students remaining to fill all those jobs, and I ran the country into massive debt because I didn't have any high school students left to take these jobs.
Right.
So there are pitfalls in the economy and in the education system where if you make a mistake, you might not know it straight away, but a decade in time, you realize it's too late, and you have to start the island over.
You've got to manage your growth, or otherwise you bottleneck yourself, basically, don't you?
Absolutely, yes.
So your approval rating has fallen by 4%.
Knew this was going to
Your
happen.
population's gone up a little, though.
Yeah.
It looks like you're raking in the money. So what's your main source of income then?
On this island in
Exports.
particular, it's my exports. And as you can see, I have 3 docks. In the sort of previous Tropico games, I never really built that many more docks until, you know, the release of YouTube and people's strategy videos. And it's literally works out the more docks that you have, the more import and trade you're going to make because cargo ships are going to keep coming in and out. What this Tropico has done different to the others, though, is expanded on the trade routes. And I have to be honest, it's a little bit overwhelming to begin with, because when you come to the trade option, you're presented with all of these options, and you're looking at every individual type of export. And there's lots of up arrows and down arrows and green arrows and red arrows, and you're like,
Set up contracts.
how many ships have I got remaining to send extra stuff to? Do I want to piss off the USA? What's selling high right now? It's an actual trade system.
Right.
And so the game does sort of go, yeah, it's there, you should use it, make some extra cash on the side, make your life a little bit easier. So that's something new to sort of, get your head around. And it does also affect your foreign relations and policies too.
So what are you playing right now? Is this just like are the maps random, or is it just a randomly generated island and you just start building on it, see how far you get, or is this a campaign?
This is the campaign. This is the sort of story mode.
Yeah.
And they've changed things drastically for this game over the previous games, because in every mission, every island, or every scenario in the previous campaigns, fresh island, fresh start, different mission objective, strung together by a few bits of dialogue from sort of Tropico's sort of mainstay characters popping up, like Einstein, Penultimo, the generals, etc. So the story in this one, I don't want to really go into spoilers because there's not much story.
Yeah.
But what they have changed is that the permanence of your builds, and as you saw when I first started this island, a lot of it was already there. And that was the progress I'd made in a previous mission. So
in the
campaign. So the islands that you build carry on into the next one, and into the next one,
right,
and into the next one. So if you make mistakes early on, you kind of screwing yourself over in the long run.
Right.
And I did get to a point in the campaign where I was like, I'm so screwed. My economy, I've got like minus 100,000, in credits. I've just been sat here on fast forward mode, watching the economy crash, whilst I get closer and closer to the actual objective, which is still within reach. And I literally achieved that objective, and then it's like, I was getting ready to have to go back to that island. I'm like, how am I going to salvage it? And luckily, at a certain point in the game, it went, fresh island. Go back to the colonial era and start again. It was like, oh, thank God. So literally, you learn enough to get to a certain point in the game, which is good. And you get to start over again and sort of learn from all of the mistakes that you've trial by fire as you play through the game again. If you're a Tropico veteran, you'll get used to the new system very quickly, especially when it comes to edicts. Again, very similar. Your building permit, you want to build up that Swiss bank account. Reason why, when you come to upgrade your Dynasty members, each one needs to be leveled up. And as you can see, I'm at max with my main character there. But leveling up would require another 40,000 Swiss dollars, and I'm currently sitting at 228. I did literally just get the achievement for a pension, for having stashed away so much money, and there are lots of nefarious ways in the game to make additional Swiss dollars.
So you are siphoning off
you can siphon money through banks, through tourism, through smuggling. There's lots of different ways, and obviously there's lots of little rewards. And obviously, as you can see in the bottom corner, there's lots of what I call mini objectives, and that's sort of to keep you going so that you don't stagnate. And that comes from the different faction leaders, because obviously not only have you got to worry about USA and USR and the rebels, you've also got to worry about your religious community, your militarist community, your naturalists. You've got to worry about your capitalists and your communists, and it's a game of balancing everybody to try and keep everybody happy so that you don't get attacked by rebels.
And you can make lots of money.
The game does, and make lots of money on the side. And it's so damn addictive and fun. It is a time sink. I will literally start the game and I'll be like, I'll just do this island and this island. And I'll have a look at this island and I want to go back to, and before you know it, 8 hours has passed and you have to break.
So what is the appeal of this then, Gary? What is I mean, you can say so like, oh, SimCity, you feel like some kind of civil servant actually managing a city, or you say you go for one of the other things like Civilization, you can be like, yeah, I'm going to be the architect of an empire. But so what is it about Tropico which is so addictive and appealing?
It's in its humor. It's definitely within the humor. Now, I do miss the radio station from the previous game, and sort of the radio announcer sort of constantly giving commentary on your actions, the new buildings that have been created. A lot of that's been removed. We now have the tavern wench sort of passing comments here and there. And again, the humor is in there. One thing that I do like, and it's similar with the other Tropical games, is when the text pops up, the characters in their voices will deliver the first few lines of dialogue, and then you are forced to sort of read the rest of it to get the gist of it. The music, I don't think the music's ever been as good as it has been in Tropico 3, but it's sort of the light-hearted Caribbean music. It carries you along, whilst your brain is constantly working things out, and you're trying to map things ahead of yourself at the same time as trying to actually build a glorious looking city.
Okay.
The story, it's not the best thing. It's not what's going to keep you coming back, although the few story moments that are in there will engage you and make you laugh at the ridiculousness of some of the scenarios that you are going to engage in.
Yeah.
Like winning the lottery. And I'm not going to go into the spoilers of the story, because it is comical for what it is.
Yeah.
But the gameplay, it's so simple, it's streamlined, and it's so fun. You'd think it's boring. I can only imagine that people watching the game, are not going to be super excited about watching somebody else build their city, because it is really a solitary game. And you're going to say now, the combat in the game, it's, again, nothing like Civilization, because you have zero control over the combat.
You got a fight going on there.
when rebels attack or an enemy attacks, they will literally mark buildings like this.
Yeah.
That's where they're going to attack.
They're gonna
Your
come
units
up.
will either go there to defend or try and cut them off.
Yeah.
You have no control over the combat.
Okay.
You literally have to hope that your units are better trained, and you can do that by edicts, which will of course cost you money. So I'm just going to pass the military edict off right now and increase my military units' capabilities, and you are then literally just left to kind of spectate and watch the units run around desperately like headless chickens as the combat unfolds.
It looks like your peasants are completely overwhelmed there.
Yeah, I've kind of got 2 tank kind of military units up here, so yeah, they are gonna get screwed, which is fine. My population might go down a bit, but rebel threat is gonna be reduced. So, you know, I'm not gonna complain. As I said, they have streamlined some buildings. Like in previous games, you can get arsonists and bombers, which like to go around and set fire to buildings. So you'd have to build a fire station. You can also get hit with tsunamis, tornadoes, earthquakes, and volcanoes.
Right.
So natural disasters are plenty, and again, there is another edict, a disaster relief fund, which is kind of, the other nations will give you more diplomatic aid when you suffer the wrath of nature.
Yeah.
But of course, like I said, they've streamlined some of the buildings, so there is no longer a fire station. So you're like, well, how are you going to cope? Your police station can be upgraded to become the fire brigade as well.
Right.
Of course, while also reducing the crime levels in the area. Of course, you want to then build newspapers, because they got rid of the radio station, newspapers and televisions to increase liberty, to make everyone feel safe again on the island. Now, one thing that this game has done that no other Tropico game has done before, multiplayer.
Right.
Competitive multiplayer and cooperative multiplayer.
Okay.
And I can say that I've dabbled into it. I've not tried co-op multiplayer because, you know, I don't have any friends that have the game right now. So actually trying to build on an island with a stranger, not very appealing.
No.
And I can tell you now that the lobby for the game is empty. There was, you know, on a weekday there'd be like 7 people in there, and they'd all be in the international lobby. Now, I credit the game's multiplayer system for anticipating the low numbers of players. So that when you come onto the multiplayer of the game, you are in the lobby with everyone else in the world that's playing the game right there and then, broken down into your individual country. So it's like you go into the UK and it's like, right, there's one person in there. Oh, that's me. Okay, so I'll go into the international lobby and there'll be like 10 people in there, 7 of them all being anonymous for some reason or other. And you can literally, all people in there can type in the text, I'm starting a game, this is my setup. And so people will then try and find their game and jump into it and eventually start the game.
There should, in theory, be loads of Bulgarians in there.
What I do like is that you can also do 2 teams of 2 against each other.
Okay.
And you can also have different set victory objectives, like reach the maximum era, have the most money in the bank, or destroy the other player through military conquest.
So are you both building on the same island?
All 4 players would build on the same island in a sort of, you can have randomly generated maps, preset maps, and also preset variables about how crazy the political regimes are going to be, or how frequently natural disasters are going to occur.
Right.
And then you are literally adjusting whether you want to play the game for 2 hours or 10.
Okay.
Now, thankfully, something interesting that the game has done, and I haven't been able to test it yet because in my multiplayer experience, 10 minutes into my multiplayer game, either everybody quit or I got disconnected, how yet somehow managed to stay on the island and managed to play it out till its completion anyway.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, if they're losing early, will drop out and go, I'm not going to invest the time into staying the rest of the time knowing I'm going to lose, because it's a time commitment. So again,
that's why you need
best
to do
played
it
with friends.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, what I do like is that there is a feature to save game in multiplayer.
Right.
Now, what you do is you request to save, and when you request to save, everybody else that's currently in the game will all save at the same time, because it's going to stop the game for everybody.
Yeah.
Because you can't go and speed up time for your game, and then it speeds up time for everybody else. It's not going to work. Not one person has control over that.
Right.
So, and just as before we reach the end of the video, I just want to say the other last thing that you can lose is that, of course, if the happiness reaches so low general election, if you get voted out by the population, you're game over.
It's game over.
Of course, there is a way to sort of enact martial law and then just go, right, there'll be no voting,
elections.
no elections. But then, of course, you'll have uprisings sort of every 5 minutes. So you better hope you've got a strong military. I definitely recommend this game. I was excited for Tropico 5 2 years ago, and I was gutted when I saw you playing it on PC, and I was like, nope, I'm going to play it on my controller. You don't need a keyboard and a mouse to play this game.
No.
And I will say that it is
fair,
finely crafted to a controller.
I was going to say, to be fair, it was kind of very much orchestrated for a controller, even on the PC.
Okay.
They did
so
design it that
having
way.
all of the DLC packs in there, and I can say there is a long list of them.
I was going to say, tell me about the DLC quickly before we finish.
I have no idea.
Really?
Because it's all implemented into the game. A lot of the DLCs in the other Tropicos were a few additional campaigns, a few additional scenarios, primarily a bunch of different buildings. So, since playing this game not knowing that, all I've known is that there are, as I've shown you, a bunch of different buildings to build. So I don't know what's new and what's different. I do know, which is great, that as each building, as you go through the eras, will change their dynamic. They'll have different functionality. You can upgrade them, as you saw me upgrade the ranch earlier. So there's a lot of versatility to a lot of the buildings. So I honestly can't say what's been added to it. What I can say is there is an overwhelming amount of content in there, including the sandbox mode, where you can, again, adjust the variables as to what sort of difficulty you want to play on. With this game being incredibly replayable and addictive, there's more content in the game for replayability than I will ever actually play myself. I will say, now I've got to Tropico 5, my interest in the franchise is waning slightly, because it is more of the same, but better. You know, this genre has been incremental upgrades. This genre has been defined to the point where the only thing they could really do with this game is change its aesthetics and its visuals and its sort of location, which they tried to do with Tropico 2, which was more pirate orientated.
Right.
But again, it's just bits like that have just been incorporated overall into Tropico. So I don't know what the future is for this series. All I know is that what is now in this game is great, and it's not a full budget title as well. You can get it for about £30 or $30, so it's not, full price $60 game on release.
Yep.
So, and if you are now getting it on PC as well, or on a PlayStation 4, where it's been available for several years, it's now a budget title. And for the hours and hours you're going to get out of it, I have to recommend it. Especially if you're going to get a friend who's interested in it too, you're going to have even more fun with it. Yeah. So I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, and I recommend this game as well. It is a bit more of a one for the filthy casuals, but that is kind of part of its charm and appeal. It's so light-hearted, tongue-in-cheek, and yeah, it's not so swamped in stats and fine detail that you can't just pick it up, play it, put it down.
It can be if you up the difficulty to the highest levels. Then you really need to min-max and micromanage every single citizen to make sure your economy is going to survive the next random attack.
But you don't have to spend hours putting in plumbing.
No, you don't have to put all the pipes in. Thank God.
Yeah.
So, but I can also say the Metacritic for this game is very high. I think it's like between 70 and 75 at sort of the maximum, really.
Is that
across the board?
User reviews?
That's for critics and user reviews. Nothing below 60 at all.
Okay.
So
the two match each other, do they?
Very much across PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. There's not much difference at all. I think the lowest score, believe it or not, is the user reviews for the Xbox One. But take that for what you will. I think this is a great game. Definitely recommend it.
Cool.
And that's going to be it from us here on Off the Shelf Reviews this Gaming Friday.
May God shine on your dynasty, El Presidente.
Yes, yes. So we'll be back next Friday with another video game. Of course, film reviews on Thursdays. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and Patreon. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.
Take it easy.